Okay, everyone, we would like to get started, so if you could grab a seat, that would be great. Yeah, we're starting now. Yeah, let's start. Everyone,
Begin by introducing ourselves once again. You've already heard enough from me. Aseem, CEO and co-founder of Amelino. Greta?
Greta Remington. I've got 32 years of innovation and new product launch experience. I have my own consulting practice, and I'm also working with Fuel Growth in the development of their tools.
Hi, my name is Kuldeep. I work at Kugamon.
I'm Archit. You've heard from me a while back, co-founder and CEO of Fuel Growth.
So we wanted to put this as fire chat. We have a few questions for our esteemed panelists, but towards the end, if there are questions, we'd love to take them. Archit, would you mind kicking us off with some questions for Kuldeep and Greta, please?
Yeah, I think we'll sort of want to do a little bit of fun icebreaker as a first question, but we'll also want to jump directly in to the revenue cycles and with your combined experience. What's the most unexpected experiment or a move which you guys and your experiences have done while working with your own startup or companies you're advising, which has paid off, which you never felt or thought would move the needle when you were going with those experiments in your day-to-day work?
Okay, so a little quick background. So I run a company called Kugamon, and what we do is we create quotes and orders. We do invoices, collect payments, and we do subscription management on Salesforce. So we do the whole CPQ, billing, and subscription management. And I've been very fortunate that our app is quite popular in the Salesforce ecosystem. So to answer your question, I think for me was getting involved with YouTube.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of documentation. I asked one of our folks that was in our customer success team to put some videos behind the documentation and just put it on YouTube. And lo and behold, our support case count went to 0 because people were able to figure it out. But then our prospects would view the videos, so our sales cycle dropped. And now that's a competitive differentiator, that we have a video and everything about our functionality. So that was an experiment that really worked out.
Awesome. I mean, I think we spoke about it in the last call as well, and this is something I think a lot of us can learn from. Yeah.
Very unique.
But how did you come up with this? Like, what was the idea? Was it a rationale or like a educated guess or just sort of?
So it's kind of interesting. So we have documentation, and we would have a support situation where we say, oh well, we have an article on that, and would send it out, and we just noticed that people were still asking the same questions. At the same time, I noticed that on YouTube, more and more people there's like these technical influencers about RevOps and business operating systems. So like, for example, if you go in the Salesforce space, you would find folks like Salesforce Hulk and After Apex Hours, and they would have like 100,000 subscribers and just people watching their videos. Like, it's an incredible amount of time on something just kind of like Salesforce,
right.
That kind of thing. And so I said, well, why don't we put some of our videos, and lo and behold, like, if you guys go to YouTube right now and you guys type in, create a quote from an opportunity, a Kugamon video is more likely to be in the top 3 videos. So that's helped. So that's kind of how we did it. Just people weren't reading our articles.
Awesome. Greta, you've launched so many products.
Yes, and I've done a lot more in the consumer sector, everything from traditional CPG to retail, e-commerce, B2C, et cetera. But we did a project recently, and actually was working a bit with Archit on this, and for a company called Zesty Bakers, and it's basically the Etsy of the artisan baking world. So if you want to go on and buy these beautiful $200 and $300 Instagram-worthy cakes for a gender reveal or a birthday, this is the place to go. And today people go on Facebook Marketplace and fumble around trying to find it. What we learned very early was that we had a lot of interest, a lot of engagement, but people would sign up, and then the feedback we were getting as well, I have a birthday coming up for a friend in 6 months or in 3 months, so that the conversion lag was a problem. So we found that they're interested, but we're not converting, and then the longer it goes between awareness and conversion, that drops off. So we tried something that we were hoping would work, honestly, and it blew up in a good way, better than we'd hoped, which was we said we had to create our own moment. So if you've got these long conversion lags, create a moment that we decided to do. I don't know if you're familiar with cake picnics, but they're kind of very on trend right now. People go to a party in a park, they each bring cake, and then everybody takes pieces of cake and goes. It's a big party for people that like to eat cake. So they decided to just host a party for cakes. And we put an ad out, and then the ad blew up. We had over 1,000 responses to that. We sold 150 tickets to this cake event in 48 hours. And so now, and then people, guess what, they're buying their cakes on that site. So we basically, it's sort of create your own magic, create your own moment. But it did surprise me how much attraction we got from that. And that's consistent with what I've seen for some other clients where things that are in real life really resonate. We tend to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, is it this tagline or this ad or is it this media buy? And sometimes it's just, if you reach out to people and do something, look at this, all the people that showed up here tonight, in real life is really capturing people's imagination right now. So if you're not sure what to do, host an event. It works brilliantly.
Well, I'll add to that. Thank you for sharing that, Greta and Kuldeep. This is one of the first times our company has done an event, and I fully agree with you. You put a call out there, people come, and then just tonight I've met so many people that from whom I can learn, and this is a great opportunity. So I fully second that.
For me, like on a personal level, with my first startup, I had a friend who worked at a marketplace. We were selling software to marketplace sellers. For example, a lot of sellers on Amazon. We were selling our product to these sellers on Amazon and marketplaces. But this was based in Southeast Asia, so they've got a marketplace over there called Lazada, which is big over there. And I knew a guy who worked over there. And so I was trying to find a way to get in to one of their teams who can then sort of help me blast the launch of a product to all their merchants. I tried reaching out to the right people for 3-4 months. And then when I got in, they did a blast for us, and our product automatically went inside the mailboxes of 100,000 sellers. And we had our first 100 customers out of there with that sort of launch, and it was sort of $0 spent for us. When sometimes old school hacks work as well.
You just got to find what works for you. Let's go to the next question.
This one's specifically for Greta, and this is more on the top of the funnel part of it. So we'll start on top of the funnel and we'll try to go more bottom of the funnel from there to conversion. In terms of the brand signals, Greta, what are you seeing today in 2025, which you feel a lot of startup founders, a lot of marketing teams today, what is one main metric for you which might be moving the needle according to you on the kind of companies you work with, and what's your advice to people over here if they have to narrow down and not waste a lot of time in experiments?
More in the branded versus the performance stuff? Branded is tricky. I think, first of all, I think people tend to look at things in two very discrete buckets, which I think is the wrong way to think about marketing. There's this idea of like, well, there's this branded stuff, which is, devalued for a lot of people because they just think, well, you're just doing organic, you're just pumping out some content over here. But the paid, there's a lot of focus on paid. But it's a little bit like if you don't put the time and effort into learning how to build the relationship on the branded side, you're blowing up your CAC and your and a number of aspects on even getting the conversion. It's sort of like, when you're dating, you have to kind of court somebody for a little while. You don't go from like meeting someone to proposing in the same, within an hour. So you can't just say, we're going to skip all this branding stuff because it's expensive and I can't really measure it. There's no really metrics, and let's just run a bunch of ads. So you've got to really warm them up. I would tell it varies so much by industry, but if you want a rule of thumb, I would say you need to plan on 3 to 6 months of warming up your audience, building some awareness so that they're kind of have heard of who you are. So when they see an ad, they're like, I'd like to learn more. Don't go in for the kill right away. So this sort of broad advice on how to warm people up. And the other thing is to kind of think about, can you drop little breadcrumbs? So can you ask them to take a survey, get their opinion, start to engage with them. I've done some really inexpensive stuff where you can give away a gift card for some. You'd be amazed what people will do for a $25 Amazon gift card. But you say, hey, we're giving away this thing and we would just love your opinion on something. People are on their phone, they're scrolling, they're bored, they'll answer a question. But the moment that they answer a question about do you have a need in this space? So you're kind of doing a little research, but they're stopping for like 10 seconds and answering a question, and you're getting that brand impression. So don't look at it as either just pumping out mindless content or doing paid. Try to find ways to engage with them and build some awareness and build that relationship for 3 to 6 months.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So this is actually kind of incredible. So you're saying that, so let's say I have a B2B company,
Yeah.
and I want to build out awareness and get out there. What do you think would be the best approach to get these AI chatbots to recommend and present your offering? I've been very fortunate, like when leads would come in and my team would talk to them, like, oh, how did you hear about them? And they're like, oh, ChatGPT recommended. But I was always curious, how would ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or Perplexity know, like how would you, because I believe more and more folks are going to just do that more search, how the Apple, Eddie Q just mentioned that, there's more there's a dip in Google search and Safari. So how do you think you would do that? How would you get?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I think we're all still learning what are the things that trigger the AI. We've learned a lot about SEO, like we've learned all the different rules and metrics, but AI is still, I think it's still really runs off of some of the same principles as SEO in terms of it's looking for authority, it's looking for likelihood, but I think that the big difference is in the quality of the content. I think it can really tell, like you can't just crank out a bunch of garbage. And it has to be authentic to your voice. So if you're going to do like SEO or posts or try to get your activity out there, you want to start by writing down your opinions, write it in your voice. Use AI to clean it up. Don't just go into AI and say, crank out 10 articles on these topics, because more and more the engines can read. They know, they can tell it was because they've seen 15 other articles on the same topic using the same lines. So you've got to interject it with a unique voice. So if let's say you're a law firm, and a B2B thing, they're trying to get more clients. It's having the lawyers pick a topic and actually interview them, or have some mechanism that'll produce the interview. Get real quotes, real content, real advice out of your the business, and get real unique and organic advice from them, and then use that in the post, because the AI, from what I've seen in AI, it increases the ranking for unique and what looks like human voices versus AI generated. Have you seen anything similar?
Yeah, so I think for me, the traditional SEO route, if you look at when you do an experiment, when you go for a search in a ChatGPT and when you search directly on a search engine, see what ranks and compare what is ranking on top of these search engines and versus what ChatGPT is recommending. I think as a rule of thumb, we should all do that for our keywords and for what our audience is looking for. And what I've started observing is, I think for you, why you were coming on top is because of your YouTube. I can just tell you a lot straight away. But also Reddit. I think we discussed about Reddit, right? So these are small places where I don't think people or companies concentrate as much. But when you do a search on Google, Google is picking up from YouTube, Reddit, because these are more authentic content. These are more user-generated content. So even Google now knows where are more user-generated content coming out from. And that is where these ChatGPTs of the world and others search AI sort of search capabilities are now sort of looking at scraping it and then giving you answers. I think for me, that's a little bit of hack which I would suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. We should pull at the key topic that's probably at everybody's mind today, which is everybody's mind for the last 2 years, which is AI. And I know, Kuldeep, if it's okay, let's start with you, because you've thought a lot about where AI in the revenue operations flow works, doesn't work, top of funnel, bottom of funnel. I know you've thought very deeply about it, and I'd love to have you share your perspectives.
Yeah, thank you. I spent a lot of time about this, so I just give a little background. So I've been involved in this space for about 20 years. I've been running Kugamon for 16 years. I know you guys are saying, wow, he looks so young, so I appreciate it. So I've been very fortunate to have customers from small startups to large global enterprises. And what my product does, and from my perspective, is that we help the sales rep create the quote, create the order, manage the sale, the fulfillment of the sale, dealing with billing and so forth. And I've been looking at how do I bring in AI to make it more efficient and help our customers and make them the whole thing is help them become more profitable, save money, prevent churn and so forth. And what I'm finding out there is that if you look at these organizations at a certain size, there really isn't an AI app to make life better. If you kind of look at from dealing with leads on one end, there's a lot of AI tools in terms of getting you prospects and data enrichment. But when you're a sales rep and you need to create a quote, depending on the size of companies, there's just a lot of people that are involved. You need to get permission on special pricing, or maybe the sales rep is trying to break into a new account and they're trying to come up with something unique. There isn't an AI app saying, can you please create a quote for me that's highly profitable but competitive against, that doesn't exist yet. And I'm looking to build something like that, but I'm not seeing it. Where I'm seeing AI in that RevOps space of, or the sales ops, is maybe tangential, like, hey, who are my top companies? Which leads or which opportunities should I follow on? Where's the deal momentum? Stuff like with your app on the forecasting side. But I'm not really seeing AI on the quoting, on the orders. There's some, if you go on YouTube, there are some proof of concepts with some of my competitors where you can chat and hey, create a quote and add some line items, and that'll create something. But I haven't seen any company saying oh yeah, the price that they gave, we're just gonna just go with it and just send it out there. Because the challenge is that you also have to know your buyer, and sometimes they'll be a stickler, so you don't want to give them the best price up front because you know that their procurement person at the end is going to ask for another 10% discount. Right. And so there's a lot of these weird kind of idiosyncrasies that an AI app, you just can't implement and just go with it on that sense. There is automation though, so you have automation and sending out reminders, automation saying renewals, past due notices. So there's a lot of automation, but having an AI, a machine learning, an algorithm dealing with math that you could just drop in and have an app just go with it, it doesn't really, I don't see the adoption there.
I think there's, well said, I think there's still a big gap between automation and intelligence, so I think a lot more work to be done. But I'd love to hear your perspective on where do you see AI being deployed intelligently and where it is having ROI, and where there is still a gap, if you would love to share.
Yeah, sure. I think kind of building off what you're saying, there are some gaps, and there's some, at this point, necessary gaps. The best way I've heard just AI described, and the way I describe it to people, is it's like having a junior level employee. So, for example, in your scenario, you might have a junior level employee do some background research, prepare an initial quote, do about 80% of the work, but you still need that director of sales, VP of sales to come in, take that starting point, refine it, personalize it, and put that layer of thinking and intelligence on top of it. So I look at AI the same way. So if I'm doing something for an advertising campaign, I think, especially in the CPG space, I think is kind of wide open in terms of AI. Basically, there's Jasper, there's Midjourney, there's like a handful of like visual generators, a couple of bad ad generators, and some logo generators, and that's all they've come up with so far. But what they do is you can have the AI go out and look at 10,000 competitors' ads and look at all the stuff a human being couldn't possibly have time to do.
Correct.
Go and do this kind of analysis, pull this together, and deliver to me as the brand strategist your assessment of what's going on in the marketplace. But don't take it as far as saying, and then I want you to write the campaign, and then I want you to write the strategy. So I use it like having like an army of junior employees that are doing all the dirty work, so then delivering something that I can layer that 10 or 20% on top of.
Do you think there's going to be a point where a startup, like a CMO, can just say, hey, my budget is, I don't know, $500 a day, just run with it? Like, I want to increase my revenue and it'll just do everything?
Eventually, but I think it's sort of at the beginning of the process, you still have to write the strategy and the guidance. At a certain point, you can turn it loose, but that's only after that, like, several months of learning. When you start to see repetition, and even then you take an individual campaign, you can say, okay, start running derivatives and run this theme. But then in the background, as a strategist, you're starting the next campaign. So it's sort of like, a rolling song, right? Once your campaign is perfected, you can let the AI run with it. But you need to sit down then and start working on what's next, what's new, because you're going to have to refresh it. At some point, it will wear itself out, because it can't create. It'll just keep doing derivatives until it washes down to the ROAS dropping. At least in my experience, that's on maybe more on the consumer side, more B2C.
I mean, just to follow up on sort of this discussion, right? So all of us as founders, where do you see on this, right? So where do you see today in execution, not in the future, today? I mean, I think as AI improves, more and more of the work will get automated. But today, are we already in a state where you prefer using AI over hiring a junior employee in your team or an intern in your team, or you prefer saying, okay, no, I have AI, it saves me a lot of mind space, it saves me time for training these junior employees, getting them up to speed with where we are in our business, how much we know about our customers, instead of refining them over and over and over again. Where are you guys right now in your sort of decision making today?
Let's start with you guys, and then I'd love to share.
I guess it's that awful answer of it depends. I think it comes down to in sales negotiation, maybe no. In product recommendations, maybe yeah. In helping craft an email to a lead that's gone, a deal that's gone cold, yeah, like, hey, help me with that type of stuff. Like for our YouTube videos, I did kind of look at like, oh, maybe I should do those AI video, but I just realized that. Can I say something controversial?
Yeah, I think we need more controversy on the stage.
Yeah. Do.
I have this belief that anything that you put AI to kind of ruins it for everybody. And here's an example. So once you started having like these AI generating for blog posts, nobody reads blogs. No. Once you started having it for like LinkedIn posts, nobody reads LinkedIn's. Once you started having email automation, nobody reads your emails. So like there's a lot of emails that I get in the structure and the format, and I feel like once you're starting having, like, you'll see these YouTube videos and you can tell it's AI. Nobody, well, they do have a lot of views, but I have to like, I don't know who's watching them. Maybe it's another AI.
It's another AI.
And stuff like that. But so I'm worried that we're getting to a point where everything will be so automated that it'll make it, excuse me, it'll get the negative consequence.
But wouldn't we soon be in a world where AI will be reading what AI is generating and telling us what to do?
Like it's kind of it kind of sucks. Like just with calling support
Yep.
and getting, it's where it's getting really difficult to get to a human. So I don't know. I have a lot of. I'm always looking at how to make things more efficient. But even for our customers, especially when you have a global customer and they have folks in different offices and there's a lot of idiosyncrasies and issues, I don't know how you can just drop in functionality and that they will all agree to deploy in that company. So that's one of the challenges.
You should tell it.
So I'm a bit of a nerd and a futurist. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, what happens next? And I'm old enough to remember when computers started to really take off, and they were like, "Oh, this will put everybody out of work." Well, everybody always predicts when there's groundbreaking new technology that's going to put everybody out of work, and it actually just sort of shifts the way we do things. So what I think is actually going to happen is that rather than if you think about blogs and YouTube as content coming at you, then all we do now is search. How do I do this? How do I do that? And then you hope somebody out there has produced an answer to that question. So it's request-based information. And then there's things out there that help you say, well, here's what people are requesting and what they're looking for. I think it's going to flip around. Imagine if what happens next is I go into YouTube, as I have my AI agent go onto YouTube and say, okay, AI, produce a video for me to answer this question for me. It goes out and watches 100 videos and aggregates them into I want a 10-minute video on how to install a new faucet in my sink. And here's my brand of faucet, and customize the whole thing. And I think we're going to be able to start requesting it to go out and generate the content that we want. I'm not going to watch a blog anymore. I'm going to say, hey, I've never done a media campaign in the build tech community, so tell me what I need to do this. And it'll go do the research for me. So I think it's actually going to start being that we won't be receiving content. I think we need to start thinking forward to a world where people are requesting content, and now we need to find ways to market to them and put ourselves into that dialogue.
I like to share my perspective on this. This is a very interesting question, Archit. Like, I mean, the question you're trying to get at is if you were trying to hire an intern in this year, 2025, would you prefer a junior employee or an intern or use AI, right? And I think that's a super deep question. It forces us to think about, like, yes, the very fact that we're all in this room, I think most of us would argue that, look, having AI do automation is faster, better, cheaper, more efficient than training new employees. I think at that level, the answer is very clear. The problem that I've seen personally hits to the heart of what you've been talking about, Greta, which is that look, everything is the same, right? You also said that. Every blog is the same, everything is the same. How do you break through the noise, right? Like we all get tons of emails, and I think we've all learned to recognize in the first 2 or 3 seconds, was this email written by an AI? If it is, all of us just delete that email. What I found with people, even if it takes more time to train them and get them to do the right things, is once in a while they come up with something so unique, so different, so unlike AI, then you're like, wow, nobody's thought of this before, because we've all been learning how to prompt engineer Perplexity and ChatGPT. And those new ideas either help us break through in the marketplace, produce a better product, produce better copy, or just do things very differently from what everybody else is doing. So now, like if you had asked me this question 6 months ago, Archit, I would have said ChatGPT and its family all the way. But now I think because everything is so blah, having that human unpredictability and inefficiency, to your point, I think pays off. So have to mix and match it.
I agree with you. I think I had that thought till a month ago. And I feel, I think maybe developers a lot of work can be done because it's repetitive work. You don't need to be so creative. I think creative copywriting and creative marketing and sales pitches, you want to get into the inboxes, want to get a copy out which people see. I think you still need human involvement over there. Yeah. I think with this, are we doing a Q&A now or later, or how do you want to go about it?
I guess let's do a quick Q&A.
Yeah, quick one. We would love to sort of take a pause and let you guys in the audience, if you have any questions for us and the panelists.
Otherwise, cool.
All right.
Well,
I think we have one over there.
There's one question.
Yeah, there's always one bold one.
Hi. I really liked your point about the YouTube videos that you mentioned earlier. And I think that's very smart to put out that content. And you're thinking about not just about how you're going to get new sales, but also you're thinking about how you're going to support existing customers to reduce those costs. So are you all in? What are some of the other things that you're looking at in terms of bringing video into your product? Because I could imagine there's also training, right, for salespeople and how to maybe further your products and your customer journey. I was curious if you're looking at those things or if you focus more on the support capabilities of YouTube right now.
I'm smiling as you said that because just today we're going to be launching a new version of our app where in the app we're going to have like little YouTube video directions. So right now we're doing on the admin functionality to kind of direct them. So on certain features, there's a learn more with a little YouTube link. I think what's happened is that we started it from a customer support and then for training. But we didn't realize by putting all this content, it helped us with our prospecting. However, because we have all this content, we realized, well, why don't we go around the edges on the stuff that's not Kugamon related, but tangential around us, like how to create a user in Salesforce. And what that's done is that's created a broader like coverage model. And so now, like I was mentioning earlier to somebody that, we got a 1,000 user opportunity because somebody came in and ended up watching 6 hours worth of our videos. And then when they talked to the sales rep, they're like, hey, can you talk to our board? Like, we're ready to go, because they're so enthusiastic. They shared the videos and everything. And so not that many B2B startups like do that. And I think this is a great opportunity to kind of to help educate the market. Every time somebody watches our video, that saves us from getting on a Zoom call and educating them. And so that has really basically helped us out in getting out the word. And so I'm very fortunate for YouTube. Can I say a downside to it? The downside is the person that we have, she has such a great voice. Now we have to pay her more because we don't want her to leave because she's kind of like the voice of the company. So, yeah. So you gotta find, yeah.
Start paying to replicate the voice.
We're very fortunate.
Cool. I think are we out of time? Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're out of time. I think we'll all be sort of there if you have any questions in person. We'll leave. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Kuldeep and Greta
Kuldeep,
for this.
Greta, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you guys.